I should enjoy this. Why does it feel like nothing reaches me? Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I'm becoming empty. If you've been losing interest in everything lately, it doesn't automatically mean you've turned lazy, ungrateful, or dead inside. It can be a sign that your mind has been exposed to too much noise, too much comparison, too many tiny hits of stimulation, and it's protecting you by going flat. In a world that never stops pulling, numbness can become the body's way of surviving. What you're about to recognize is the cultural shape of that flatness, how endless feeds, microdopamine living, productivity pressure, and background anxiety make pleasure feel thin, like it won't stick to your life anymore. This isn't a moral flaw. It's what happens when an era trains you to sample everything and absorb nothing. It begins in ordinary scenes that should feel simple. You wake up and reach for something, your phone, your thoughts, your worries, before you've even arrived in your own body. You make coffee and the taste is there, technically, but it doesn't bloom. You put on music you used to love and it plays like wallpaper. You watch a show and it's fine. You meet a friend and you can talk, you can smile, you can perform normal, yet you feel like you're watching yourself do it from a few feet away. Nothing hits. You keep trying. And the confusing part is that you're still functioning. You can work. You can answer. You can keep up with the basic rituals of being a person. But the emotional reward, what used to glue you to the moment, feels gone. It's like your inner world has stopped receiving pleasure as something that lands and stays. Everything arrives, touches the surface, and slides off. This is why the experience can feel eerie. Because it's not only sadness. It's disconnection from spark. And once it starts, it repeats in a spiral. You look for something to feel. You scroll for a minute. A clip makes you exhale a laugh, but it disappears immediately. You swipe again. Another. Another. Your brain keeps reaching for the next small lift, like a hand checking a vending machine that never delivers a real meal. You open another tab, another app, another headline. You don't even want it. You just can't stand the quiet emptiness that shows up when there's nothing in front of you. You are not weak for that. You're responding to how this era is built. Because the modern world trains your attention the way a city trains traffic: keep moving. Keep consuming. Keep reacting. It rewards speed and novelty, not depth. The feed is a river that never ends, and it teaches you that if something doesn't stimulate you immediately, it isn't worth staying with. So you stop staying. You stop lingering. You stop letting anything unfold slowly enough to become meaningful. Pleasure becomes a flicker instead of a fire, because the environment keeps flooding you with new sparks before any warmth can form. And it isn't just entertainment. It's everything. Work is endless. Messages arrive like droplets and you're expected to be reachable, responsive, sharp. You carry a low-grade sense of being evaluated: output, performance, progress. You do more, but the finish line moves. News keeps your body in alert: economy, conflict, disasters, outrage. Even if you don't read deeply, your nervous system still tastes the threat. Social media adds another layer: comparison without rest. People's lives presented as proof. Proof of beauty, proof of success, proof of being wanted, proof of having meaning. You know it's curated. Your chest still tightens. Your mind still measures. And when you live in constant measurement, joy becomes hard to access, not because you don't deserve it, but because joy needs safety and spaciousness. It needs room to land. This is the brutal part: the world gets faster, and your emotions get shallower, not because you're incapable of depth, but because depth becomes inconvenient inside a life that never slows down long enough to feel. So your mind adapts by dulling. By turning down the volume. By refusing to get too invested in anything that will be interrupted, compared, judged, or replaced in 5 seconds. That dulling can look like: I don't care anymore. But sometimes it's, I can't care like this. You can feel it in your body. The restlessness that makes you pick up the phone without deciding to. The inability to fully enjoy a meal because your brain wants something else. The impatience with conversations that aren't immediately stimulating. The way boredom feels almost painful now, not the gentle boredom that leads to imagination, but a sharp boredom that feels like deprivation. Then guilt arrives, because the culture has moralized motivation. If you can't focus, you're failing. If you're not excited, you're ungrateful. If you're numb, you must be doing life wrong. But this isn't about virtue. This is about saturation. When an environment is overloaded, the most human response is to become less sensitive to it. If you've been living in this spiral, what pattern pulls you deepest? Scrolling, overworking, comparison, constant news, or something else? Tell me in the comments. Just naming the pattern can change the way it holds you. And there's another layer that makes the flatness worse, the pressure to turn everything into a result. Even your hobbies get evaluated like achievements. Even your rest gets measured like recovery. Even your identity becomes something you're supposed to build. You start asking, quietly, if your life is impressive enough to justify itself. That pressure poisons pleasure. Because pleasure is not a performance. It's an experience. It can't happen when you're watching yourself have it, grading it in real time, deciding whether it counts. So you do the thing that looks like passion from the outside, planning trips, making lists, buying equipment, starting projects, and yet the feeling doesn't come. You post a photo and wait for the reaction, and the reaction doesn't fill you. You hit a goal and feel nothing for longer than a minute. You buy something new and the excitement expires before the box is even recycled. This is how consumption becomes a treadmill. It promises relief from numbness, then feeds the numbness by turning everything into a transaction. And when pleasure keeps failing, you start to fear it's permanent. You start thinking you're losing your soul. You start telling yourself you'll never feel deeply again. But the flatness might be a signal, not a sentence. A signal that your mind is defending itself from a world that keeps asking for more feeling than you can safely generate. A signal that your attention has been stretched into fragments and needs time to return. A signal that your inner life is tired of being interrupted before it can bloom. That's why the solution isn't to force excitement. It isn't to shame yourself into motivation. It isn't to chase bigger highs. It's to change the conditions that make everything feel disposable. And that begins with a tiny rebellion against speed, staying with one thing longer than your impulse wants to. Letting a song play without touching anything. Reading a page slowly. Eating without entertainment. Taking a walk without turning it into content, data, or achievement. Not as a lifestyle brand, just as a quiet refusal to let your attention be chopped into pieces all day. Because attention is where feeling grows. The first days can feel worse, not better. When you stop flooding yourself with stimulation, you notice how empty you've been. That's uncomfortable. That's why the feed feels like relief. But discomfort isn't proof you're broken. It can be withdrawal from a pace that kept you numb enough to keep going. So you don't fix it with drama. You do something small and physical. Something real. You come home. You drop your keys on the counter and hear the metal click, sharp, clean, undeniable. You take off your shoes by the door. The world is still loud in your head, but the room is ordinary. There's a sink with a cup in it. You turn on the tap. Water runs. You rinse the cup slowly, watching the stream hit ceramic, hearing the steady sound fill the space where the feed would usually be. It's not thrilling. It's present. And that's the point. The return of interest rarely arrives as fireworks. It arrives as contact. As your mind learning, again, that the moment can hold you without a reward attached to it. Maybe you're not losing interest because you're empty. Maybe you're losing interest because you've been overloaded for too long. Maybe this is your mind asking for a different pace. And if you listen, quietly, consistently, feeling can come back the way circulation comes back, slowly, awkwardly, then all at once you realize your hands are warm again.